Disclaimer: this story explores mature emotional themes related to trust, love, and relationships. It does not contain explicit material, but viewer discretion is advised. I always thought my marriage was built on trust. For 8 years, Ethan and I had what most people would call the perfect relationship, one filled with laughter, deep conversations, and quiet moments that spoke louder than words. But the night I stumbled upon his secret, everything I believed came crashing down. It started with something small, a change in his routine. Ethan had always been predictable, a creature of habit. Morning coffee at 7:30, gym at 8, work until 6. But lately, he had been distracted, his phone always in his pocket, his smiles forced. He would kiss me goodnight, but his mind seemed somewhere else. I told myself it was just work stress, but deep down, a whisper of doubt had begun to grow. Then, one evening, I found an envelope tucked inside his desk drawer. My fingers trembled as I pulled it out. The handwriting wasn't his. My heart pounded as I unfolded the letter, my eyes racing over the words. I can't keep this a secret any longer. It began. My breath hitched. Was he having an affair? Was he planning to leave me? A rush of emotions, fear, heartbreak, anger, collided inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was Ethan. My Ethan. There had to be an explanation. Just then, the front door opened. His footsteps echoed through the house, slow and hesitant, as if he already knew what I had found. I clutched the letter to my chest, my voice barely a whisper. Ethan, what is this? His gaze met mine, filled with something I couldn't decipher: regret, sadness, love? I was going to tell you, he murmured. But I was afraid of what you'd think. Afraid of what? What had he been hiding from me all this time? I clutched the letter, my pulse pounding in my ears. Ethan stood frozen in the doorway, his jaw tense, his hands balled into fists as if bracing for impact. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, and for the first time in our marriage, I wasn't sure if I truly knew the man standing before me. Tell me the truth, I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. What are you hiding from me? Ethan exhaled slowly, running a hand through his dark hair, his usual composure unraveling. It's not what you think, he said, stepping closer. Just, let me explain. I wanted to believe him, I needed to, but the doubt had already taken root. 8 years of love, laughter, and whispered promises replayed in my mind. The way he held me on stormy nights. The way he always found my hand in a crowded room. The way he looked at me, like I was his whole world. Could it have all been a lie? I shook my head, my fingers tightening around the paper. Then explain, I whispered. Ethan hesitated, his Adam's apple bobbing. I never meant to keep it from you. I was scared of how you'd see me after. A lump formed in my throat. Was he sick? In debt? 1,000 possibilities raced through my mind, none of them comforting. His eyes, usually so full of certainty, now held something unfamiliar: fear. Please, he murmured, reaching for my hands. I love you, and I swear, I never wanted to hurt you. But hurt was already creeping in. And until he told me the truth, I wasn't sure if love would be enough to save us. Ethan's hands hovered inches from mine, his breath uneven. The weight of his hesitation only made my anxiety grow. Then tell me, I said, my voice breaking slightly. What is it that you couldn't say? His jaw tightened. I wanted to protect you, Claire. I scoffed, my grip tightening on the letter. From what? The truth. Because keeping secrets doesn't protect me, it just makes me wonder what else you've been hiding. His shoulders slumped, the fight draining from him. It's not that simple. Then make it simple. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He just looked at me, really looked at me. And that's when I saw it. The fear wasn't just for himself. It was for me. A chill ran down my spine. Ethan, what have you done? He swallowed hard, then glanced at the letter in my hands. It's about my past, he admitted. Something I buried a long time ago. I thought it was over, but his voice faltered. Someone found me. The room tilted slightly. Someone. My throat felt tight. Who? Before he could answer, his phone vibrated on the nightstand. The name flashing on the screen sent a shockwave through me. Unknown caller. Ethan paled. Without thinking, I grabbed the phone, but he was faster. Claire, don't. He snatched it from my hands and hit decline, his face unreadable. But I saw it, the way his fingers trembled. I need you to trust me, he whispered. I wanted to. But how could I, when the man I loved was suddenly a stranger? Ethan's grip tightened around his phone, his knuckles white. He wasn't just nervous, he was terrified. And that scared me more than the unanswered questions hanging between us. Who was that? I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter? I let out a hollow laugh. Ethan, you're shaking. Your past is calling you, and you won't even tell me why. He exhaled sharply, running a hand down his face. Because if I do, you might not look at me the same way. My stomach twisted. You don't get to decide that. Silence stretched between us. Then, slowly, he sat beside me, his body tense. Before I met you, I made a mistake, he admitted. His voice was barely audible, each word weighted with something heavy: guilt, regret, fear. Someone got hurt. I never thought it would catch up to me, but now, they want something from me. A cold shiver ran through me. Who? What do they want? Ethan hesitated. Then, as if on cue, his phone vibrated again. This time, a message flashed across the screen. If you don't answer, I'll come find you. The blood drained from my face. Ethan, he grabbed the phone and stood abruptly. I have to handle this. Not alone, I shot back, standing too. You don't get to shut me out, not after everything. His eyes met mine, filled with love and desperation. Claire, if you knew the truth, you might walk away. I swallowed hard. Then tell me, and find out. For a long, painful moment, he just stared at me. Then, with a heavy breath, he finally said. Ethan's eyes darkened, his jaw clenching as he finally spoke. Claire, I wasn't always the man you fell in love with. A chill ran through me. What do you mean? His hands trembled as he turned his phone toward me. Another message appeared. You owe me, Ethan. Time's up. I felt my stomach drop. Who is this? He hesitated, then exhaled sharply. Before we met, I worked for someone dangerous. I did things I'm not proud of. And now, they want me back. The room seemed to close in around me. Back? Back for what? Ethan turned away, his fingers gripping the edge of the nightstand. I walked away from them years ago, but no one really leaves. I thought I was free, but they found me. And if I don't do what they want, his voice faltered. They threatened you, Claire. A sharp breath left my lips. Me? Before I could process his words, a loud knock echoed through the house. The sound sent a shockwave through me. Ethan's face went pale. They're here. My heartbeat roared in my ears. Ethan, what do we do? He grabbed my hands. Listen to me. No matter what happens, you stay behind me. Panic surged through me, but before I could argue, the door burst open. A tall man in a dark coat stepped inside, his gaze locking onto Ethan like a predator finding its prey. I told you, the man said, his voice smooth but dangerous. You don't get to walk away. Everything I thought I knew shattered in that moment. Ethan's past wasn't just haunting him. It had come to take him back. Ethan stepped in front of me, his body rigid, shielding me from the man in the doorway. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made every second feel like an eternity. You don't have to do this, Ethan said, his voice calm but firm. The man smirked. We both know that's not true. You owe a debt, and I'm here to collect. I felt Ethan's hand tighten into a fist at his side. I told you, I'm done. The man tilted his head, his expression amused. Then why are you still running? Ethan hesitated, and in that moment, I saw it, the war inside him. The fear of losing me. The guilt of his past. And the weight of a choice he never thought he'd have to make. I couldn't just stand there. If you're here for him, you'll have to go through me first, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. The man's gaze flicked to me, and something unreadable passed over his face. Then, to my surprise, he chuckled. She doesn't know, does she? Ethan stiffened. Don't. But it was too late. The man's next words shattered everything. He wasn't just working for us, he said, stepping closer. He was one of us. And the only reason he left was you. My breath caught. I turned to Ethan, my heart pounding. Tell me he's lying. Ethan swallowed hard. Claire, before he could finish, the man tossed something onto the floor, a photograph. My blood ran cold. It was me. Taken just days ago. This isn't over, the man said, smirking as he turned toward the door. You'll come back, Ethan. If not for me, then for her. And just like that, he was gone. But the danger wasn't. Because now, I knew the truth. And it had never been more terrifying. Ethan stood frozen, his gaze locked on the photograph. I could feel his heartbeat through his shirt, fast and unsteady. My mind raced, his past had found him, and now, I was part of it. But I wasn't going to run. I took his hand, gripping it tightly. We're not letting them control us, I said firmly. Ethan looked at me, guilt flickering in his eyes. Claire, I should have told you everything. I nodded. Yes, you should have. But what matters now is how we move forward. His shoulders relaxed, just slightly. I won't let them hurt you. Then we fight back. Together. For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Hope. Ethan reached for his phone and, before I could stop him, dialed a number. I want out. For good. There was silence. Then, a low chuckle from the other end. That's not how this works. Then I'll make it work, Ethan said, his voice steady. I have enough proof to make sure you never threaten anyone again. A pause. Then, the call ended. It wasn't over. Not completely. But it was a start. Ethan pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead. I love you, he whispered. I smiled through the lingering fear. Then let's start over. No more secrets. He nodded. No more secrets. And just like that, we chose a new path not defined by the past, but by the love that had survived it.